There was a time when your dating history stayed exactly where it belonged in the past. If you broke up with someone, most people didn't know why. If you dated somebody famous, there wasn't a camera documenting every dinner, every vacation, every argument, and every new relationship. But then the internet changed everything. Today, your past can follow you everywhere. And that is exactly why the latest conversation surrounding Lori Harvey has people talking. According to the commentary in the source transcript, Lori was recently seen in Ibiza spending time around a billionaire from a prominent Lebanese family. That sighting has sparked online speculation about whether Lori may once again be entering a relationship with someone from an extremely wealthy background. But here's where this story gets much more interesting. The real conversation isn't simply about Lori Harvey dating a billionaire. It's about how social media has completely changed the way people approach relationships. Because before Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, blogs, and viral videos, you could meet someone and judge them based primarily on what you personally experienced. Now, you can search somebody's name before the first date even happens. You can see their previous relationships. You can find old interviews. You can see pictures. You can find arguments that happened years ago. And sometimes, you can find an entire version of someone's life before they've even introduced themselves to you. The original commentary makes precisely this argument. The internet gave people access to information about others that simply wasn't available in previous decades. And Lori Harvey is an interesting example because her dating history has been extremely public. Over the years, she has been linked publicly with several high-profile men, including Sean Diddy Combs, Future, Michael B, Jordan, and Damson Idris. Some of those relationships were confirmed publicly. Others have been heavily discussed by entertainment media. But regardless of how you interpret each individual relationship, one thing is undeniable. People have been watching. And when people watch your relationships for years, they don't just remember who you dated. They remember how each relationship appeared to end. That's where the conversation becomes complicated. Because online commentators often argue that a person's relationship history can become part of their public reputation. Now, whether that is fair is an entirely different question. But it's happening. And wealthy people, celebrities, executives, athletes, and influencers aren't immune to it. In fact, the more successful someone becomes, the more information they can potentially have access to before deciding whether they want to get involved with another person. Think about it. Imagine you're financially successful. You have your own career. You have your own property. You have your own network. You have spent years building your reputation. And suddenly someone enters your life. You're not necessarily asking, is this person attractive? You're probably asking much bigger questions. Do our lifestyles match? Do we have similar values? Can I trust this person? Are they private? Are they going to turn our relationship into content? Do they handle conflict privately? And, perhaps most importantly, what happens if this relationship ends? That last question is becoming increasingly important in the social media era. Because a breakup isn't necessarily private anymore. One person can post. The other person can respond. A blog can pick it up. A podcast can discuss it. A TikTok creator can make a reaction video. And suddenly, something that happened between two people becomes entertainment for millions. That's the fundamental shift. The internet didn't just give people more ways to communicate. It gave everybody a permanent archive. And once something enters that archive, it can be extremely difficult to make it disappear. This is why the original commentary spends so much time discussing social media behavior. It argues that publicly documenting your life can influence how potential partners evaluate you before they even know you personally. Now, we should be careful here. Having an Instagram account does not mean someone is a bad partner. Having followers doesn't mean someone is irresponsible. Dating multiple people over the course of your adult life doesn't automatically mean somebody cannot maintain a long-term relationship. Those conclusions simply cannot be established from social media. But perception? Perception is different. And perception can influence dating. That's where Lori Harvey enters the discussion. She's attractive. She's famous. She's connected. She has a recognizable name. She has spent years in the public eye. And that means her dating life receives attention that an ordinary person's dating life simply wouldn't. When she appears with a famous athlete, actor, musician, or businessman, people notice. When a relationship ends, people notice. And when she appears to move forward, people notice that too. That creates a strange situation. The same visibility that can increase someone's influence can also increase scrutiny. And that brings us back to the Ibiza sighting. The source transcript describes Lori being seen around a billionaire and says blogs began speculating that she could be involved with him. But seeing two people together does not prove they are dating. That's important. They could be friends. They could be attending the same event. They could have mutual connections. They could simply be enjoying the same social environment. Unless the people involved confirm a relationship, everything beyond that remains speculation. Still, the internet immediately starts connecting dots. And that's what makes this story fascinating. Because whether Lori is actually dating this man or not, the public conversation reveals something much larger about modern relationships. People are no longer just meeting each other. They're researching each other. They're Googling. They're scrolling. They're watching old videos. They're reading comments. They're looking at who somebody used to date. And sometimes, they're making decisions before the relationship even has a chance to begin. That's the new dating game. And the biggest change may not be what women are doing. It may be what men and women now have access to before making a decision. The original commentary argues that men who have become financially established may feel less pressure to rush into a relationship because they can choose to remain single while focusing on themselves, their careers, finances, and personal development. Whether you agree with that philosophy or not, there's an important principle underneath it. Independence changes decision-making. When someone doesn't feel desperate to be in a relationship, they're often more willing to walk away from one that doesn't work. And that's true for men and women. You don't have to accept a relationship simply because someone is attractive. You don't have to stay because somebody is famous. You don't have to remain because somebody has money. And you certainly don't have to tolerate behavior that violates your boundaries. But here's where social media creates another problem. People often present their best moments online. Luxury vacations, designer clothes, perfect pictures, romantic dinners, private jets, beautiful beaches. Everything looks perfect, but none of that tells you whether the relationship actually works behind closed doors. That's why clout can be misleading. Followers aren't compatibility. Beauty isn't compatibility. Money isn't compatibility. Fame isn't compatibility. A relationship still requires trust, communication, emotional maturity, boundaries, and mutual respect. And that's something Instagram cannot measure. So when people look at Lori Harvey's dating history and immediately try to predict her future, they're making assumptions based on a very incomplete picture. The audience sees the public version. The people involved know the private version. And those two versions can be completely different. But there is another reason this story continues to generate attention. Lori has repeatedly been associated with high-profile men, and every new appearance becomes another opportunity for people to debate what she wants, what she values, and where her life is heading. And that's where the conversation gets controversial. Because some people see a woman who knows exactly what she wants. Others see someone whose public dating history creates questions. Some see independence. Others see instability. Some see ambition. Others see superficiality. And the truth? None of us watching from the outside has enough information to confidently determine what is happening inside her private relationships. But that doesn't stop the internet. Now, let's get to the part of this conversation that people are going to argue about. Can your online history actually affect your chances of finding a serious partner? The short answer is, it can affect perception. But perception is not the same thing as truth. And that's an important distinction. The original commentary argues that social media has made it easier for potential partners to investigate someone's past before becoming emotionally invested. 30 or 40 years ago, you might hear something about somebody through friends. Maybe someone knew their cousin. Maybe somebody from the neighborhood knew their ex. But today, you can find years of information in minutes. And that creates a completely different dating environment. Imagine meeting someone new. Before you even have your third date, you've already seen their Instagram. You know what they look like on vacation. You know where they went last summer. You know who comments on their pictures. You know who they used to follow. You may even know who they dated. And if they're famous, forget about it. There may be entire websites and social media pages dedicated to their relationships. That's the environment Lori Harvey has been living in. Every relationship becomes public discussion. Every appearance can become a headline. Every new person beside her can become a rumor. And that's why the Ibiza situation immediately attracted attention. The source describes speculation that Lori may be spending time with a billionaire connected to a prominent Lebanese family. Again, being seen together does not establish a romantic relationship. But the speculation itself tells us something. People have already created a narrative around Lori's dating life. And once the public creates a narrative, every new chapter gets interpreted through that narrative. That's the danger of a public reputation. The audience doesn't start from zero. They start with everything they've already seen. If someone has had 3 relationships, people may say, that's normal. If someone has had several highly public relationships, people may say, what's the pattern? And those are 2 completely different reactions. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Patterns can matter. Not because a person's past permanently defines them. It doesn't. People mature. People learn.
People change.
Someone who made poor relationship decisions at 25 could become an entirely different person at 35. Someone who repeatedly chose the wrong partner can eventually figure out exactly what they need. So, judging someone forever based on their dating history isn't necessarily fair. But ignoring patterns entirely isn't always wise either. The mature approach is somewhere in the middle. Look at behavior. Look at consistency. Look at how somebody handles conflict. Look at how they treat people when nobody is watching. Look at whether they take accountability. Look at whether they respect boundaries. That's far more useful than simply counting X's. And this is where the original commentary becomes particularly controversial. It argues that some men may look at highly public dating histories and wonder whether someone would be difficult to build a long-term relationship with. That's an opinion. It's not a scientific rule. And it certainly doesn't prove anything about Lori Harvey personally. But as a piece of dating commentary, it raises a legitimate question. How much should somebody's past matter when you're deciding whether to build a future with them? There isn't one universal answer. For some people, the past matters tremendously. For others, almost not at all. Some people care about relationship history. Others care more about present behavior. Some people want somebody extremely private. Others don't mind being in the spotlight. Compatibility is individual. And that is why statements like, nobody wealthy will ever date her again, are impossible to prove. People can surprise you. Relationships happen when nobody expects them. And celebrities have repeatedly proven that public opinion doesn't control their private decisions. So perhaps the more interesting question isn't whether Lori can find another wealthy partner. Clearly, she has access to social circles where wealthy and successful people exist. The question is whether her next relationship, whoever it is with, will survive the pressure of public attention. Because that may be the real challenge. Imagine being in a relationship where millions of strangers have an opinion about your partner. Someone posts a picture. The comments start. Then somebody digs up an old interview. Another person finds an old photograph. A third person creates a video explaining what they think the relationship means. Suddenly, 2 people who may simply be trying to get to know each other are dealing with thousands of outside opinions. That's exhausting. And it's not unique to Lori. It's the reality of celebrity relationships. This is why privacy can become extremely valuable. When your career is public, your personal life can become the one place where you want control. And that's one of the strongest themes running through the original commentary. The more information people put online, the more information other people have available to judge them. Again, posting online doesn't make somebody a bad person. But everything you post contributes to your public image. That's just reality. And this applies to men too. A man can post reckless things. He can publicly argue with exes. He can broadcast every relationship. He can expose private conversations. He can constantly seek attention. And eventually, a potential partner may look at that history and think, do I really want to become part of this? So this isn't simply a women versus men conversation. It's a digital footprint conversation. Everyone has one. And everyone has to decide how much of their private life they want to make public. That's why the old dating world and the modern dating world are so different. Before social media, people could reinvent themselves more easily. Today, reinvention is harder because the old version of you may still be searchable. A bad decision from 5 years ago can resurface. An embarrassing photo can reappear. An old relationship can suddenly become relevant again. And sometimes the person you're dating isn't even the one who brings it up. The internet does. That may be the biggest lesson from the Lori-Harvey conversation. Your public image can become part of your relationship, whether you want it to or not. But there is another side to this. Being famous doesn't mean someone owes the public an explanation for every relationship. Lori is allowed to date. She's allowed to remain single. She's allowed to change her mind. She's allowed to end relationships. She's allowed to keep new relationships private. And she's allowed to move on without explaining every detail to strangers online. The same goes for anyone else. A breakup doesn't automatically make one person the villain. A new relationship doesn't automatically mean someone upgraded. And dating someone wealthy doesn't automatically mean the relationship is transactional. Those are narratives the internet creates because narratives are entertaining. Reality is usually much messier. And perhaps that's why the Ibiza sighting has become such a talking point. People aren't just looking at one photograph or one public appearance. They're looking at it through the entire story they've constructed around Lori-Harvey. That's why one dinner can become a debate about marriage. One vacation can become a relationship rumor. One billionaire sighting can become a conversation about leveling up. But we should remember something. A picture can show proximity. It cannot show intention. We don't know what happens behind the camera. We don't know what conversations took place. We don't know what either person wants. And until they say otherwise, everything beyond what is publicly confirmed should be treated cautiously. Still, there is one thing the internet has made very clear. The rules of dating have changed. People have more information. People have more choices. People have more visibility. And people have more opportunities to walk away. That can be empowering, but it can also make people more judgmental. The challenge is learning how to separate useful information from internet noise. Because not every rumor is a fact. Not every pattern is proof. Not every breakup means somebody is toxic. And not every glamorous relationship is actually happy. At the end of the day, Lori-Harvey's private life belongs to Lori. The public can speculate. Commentators can debate. Blogs can publish theories. Fans can argue. But only the people actually involved know what is happening behind closed doors. And if there is a real relationship developing between Lori and the billionaire mentioned in these reports, time will tell. Maybe it becomes serious. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe they were simply friends enjoying the same social circle. We don't know. And that's exactly why the smartest thing is to separate the confirmed sighting from everything people have built around it. But one lesson from this entire story is undeniable. In the social media era, your reputation can enter the room before you do. Your pictures can enter the room. Your old relationships can enter the room. Your comments can enter the room. Your mistakes can enter the room. Your successes can enter the room. And sometimes the person sitting across from you already knows more about your public history than you realize. That's the world we're living in now.
So, what do you think?
Does a highly public dating history actually make serious relationships harder? Or should people simply judge someone by who they are today rather than who they dated yesterday? And when it comes to Lori-Harvey, do you think the public is reading too much into one Ibiza sighting? Let me know what you think in the comments. Because this story isn't really just about Lori-Harvey. It's about dating, privacy, reputation, and what happens when the entire world gets a front row seat to your personal life. And in 2026, that's a game almost everybody is playing.